In this video, I'm going to take you through a very quick tour on how to create a report using Xero2SQL data and the advanced data model feature within Excel, and we'll hop straight into it. So to get into it, you've got to realize what you're trying to do. So if we're trying to do a report that looks something like this, so let's say gross margin, sales, cost of sales, etc. That's going to be obviously your ledger account, and then at the top we're going to maybe do months, or we're going to do regions if you've got regions in your organization, or divisions or cost centers, etc. And so what we need to do is we need to bring through data, we need to bring through ledger, and we also need to bring through time. So I'm going to just run through this very quickly. So we go data, we go get data. You're going to have a whole lot of different options depending on your environment. I'm going to go database, SQL database, and you can do Azure if you've got Azure, but I'm going to just go straight to here and say SQL Server. And we are actually connecting to an Azure SQL Server. You need the server name, so you'll just get this from your IT department, or possibly Larasoft can help you with that if we are hosting on your behalf. You then need the database as well, and then you're going to need to have the underlying connection. And so we'll do separate videos down the line to break down SQL into the future, but every SQL statement will have a select from, and then what you got to specify what you want to select. So in this case we're going to bring in everything, which is star, and where you want to get this from. So I'm going to just quickly get that, and we are going to select from, and this syntax you'll obviously come to learn over the time. This will be the schema, so that's consistent across all your tables in the Xero2SQL. It's normally DBO, in this case it's demo, or it could be just an abbreviation. It'll be very much the person who set up that SQL for you will let you know. And then the name, and so you'll see I've got a very basic naming convention at this stage. It's VW for view, X to S for Xero2SQL, data finance actual is telling me it's data, not information about the data, it's the actual data. Finance saying it's financial data, actual, that's the version. And then this basic Mac friendly is that there's some features within this video that won't be applicable in the Mac, so I put a lot of extra fields in this data set to give you the capability to do more traditional type Excel reporting if you don't have that Mac, if you don't have a Windows environment. So if you hit OK, it's going to pop up, and at this point in time you can see a preview of your data. So you'll see we have the date, the version, the ledger account, the ledger name, the ledger account name and code. And in the data model side, we wouldn't need to bring all of those through. We would bring it in a different way. You then got the tracking names. You then have the amount. I did a transaction count just so we can do some volume count on certain transactions. The details, the underlying ledger detail. The reference is just the Xero reference, and then at the end I just concatenated those two, detailed and reference. I've got some asset classification again, which we won't need on the advanced model, and then the tracking one ID. This is the system code that is in the back end of Xero that you can't change for tracking categories, and then tracking 02 not currently used, and then system ID is the Xero ledger account. So I'm gonna be able to transform all of that, and I'll get there, but I'm gonna for now just show you can load to, and load to gives you options. You can load it into three places. You can go table, you can go pivot table. So table will be all the rows and columns like you, in fact let me do it quickly. So if I did that, you'll see now it's gonna bring the underlying data, and you'll have all those data sets. Now the nice thing about this, if you were going to use this approach, you can use your SUMIFs, your VLOOKUPs, your pivot table on this. So you can go like insert pivot table, it will then use this underlying query. Obviously we would want to rename that something better, so I'll actually go ahead and rename it now, and this is going to be data finance actual. Okay, and then if I went insert pivot table, from table arrange, you'll see it's data finance actual. I can do a new tab or new a new pivot table, and then I can go and I can bring this through and I can say, well, actually I want to bring the ledger transactions name and code over here. I wanted to bring the amount in on the right, and I'll just format that quickly. Okay, so that's version 1. I can bring the date down in columns, and you'll see it's doing auto aggregate, auto grouping. So I've got May, etc. I can obviously make sure I don't group that, so I can say ungroup. Then you'll have all the transaction dates running across, etc. I could also take date out. I could bring in the tracking 01 name, which is the east, north, south, and I could also bring in the detail, and I've got the underlying ledger detail underneath there. So quite a lot I can do straight away. If you've got a lot of data, then obviously this is going to slow down your spreadsheet significantly, but sometimes people just like having that in. So if I then delete all these rows, except for the first few, I go delete rows, you'll see that there's only a handful. If I now go data refresh all, you'll see it brings it back. So the nice thing here is you're separating your data source and your reporting, in the sense that the data source is not dependent. What I don't like about this option is people can do typing in, etc., which then if you're doing VLOOKUPs and SUMIFs, etc., that's going to be skewed. But again, once you do data refresh, it gets restored. So it's not terrible. It's one step up from having a copy paste special values, but it's still not ideal. So I'm going to go ahead and delete that. Right click, delete. I'm going to delete that pivot table as well. Okay. And when I do that, I don't delete the connection. All I've deleted is the table. So the next thing I can say load to. Second one is pivot table report. And I'll say to a new sheet. And you'll see here, I can do the same thing. Let's just do exactly the same. Ledger name and code. And I can do amount, and I can still go all the way down to ledger detail. So the nice thing here is that I can still get all the access, but I don't have this massive tab holding all the data. The data is only coming into the pivot table based on my need, and so that would definitely be a good way. We still can't do this month versus last month, all of that stuff on this level, but you can certainly do a lot of report summarization, etc. already. Okay, that's the second way. So if I just delete that. The third way, one that I don't often use, is you can just load to a chart similar to a normal pivot table, but it's now got the underlying or the related like chart link to it as well. So that's another way. The last way is to just say only create a connection, and you only do that in this like simple version if you're going to then use this to go on to like bring in maybe budgets alongside it, and then join those together. And so you might have a data finance budget, and then you're going to create something called data finance, and you bring those two together. The advanced feature that we get to just now in this video will be when we add this to the data model. And when you add it to the data model, you're able to then go and establish relationships in a different way. So I'll show you that in a little while. Just to keep it simple, I'm going to keep this out for now. Okay. So now the next thing I need to do is I want to bring in some properties around the ledger account. So I have a pre-configured thing. Like I said, you would get your pre-configured Excel file, sample file. It'll look something like this. So let me just put this back up. It looks something like this. And if you go data, queries and connections, you'll see on the right hand side here, there's a lot of, these are called Power Query objects. So a lot of Power queries that I've created, and you'll see one of them would be like dim ledger account. So if I just actually I won't even double click on it. If I just right click on that and I say copy, and I go back to the the quick one that I've created, and I go paste, it automatically will bring it in, and you'll see anything that's related to that underlying query that I've copied will automatically come in at the same time. So that was quite nice. Obviously, if you are copying across, make sure you copy everything at the first time, because you're going to have multiple instances of server, then server brackets 2, server brackets 3, etc. So give that a little bit of thought. And so now I've got these underlying items here, and so this is where it gets quite fun now. So I've got two data sets, finance actual and dim ledger account, and now I'm going to join those two. So you can go into Power Query and do a join there. This is very much using the model-based approach. So I'm going to go to Power Pivot. There's the model. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take the dim ledger and I'm going to go and load it to, keep it as connection, and it's already been added to the model, so that's great. So then I'll go to finance actual, data load to, and I'm going to tick add to the model. So what's happening here is actually publishing it up into the data model. And so what I'm going to do now is go across to Power Pivot, manage. If you can't find it, it's one of the add-ins, and go manage. You'll see then at the bottom there, dim ledger account and dim data finance actual. You will know, or you might not know this, but if you rename it here, it'll rename in the query, but it won't rename in the data model. So do all your renaming before you push it up to the model, otherwise you're going to have to unlink and relink. So you'll see I've got a lot of properties here. I've got ledger account code, I've got the system ledger account, the status, then moving to the right, I've got a like temporary hierarchy that I've just done as an example, you know, all of that stuff. So I'm going to create a relationship now between this. And so what we have is we've got the data, the underlying data. It's called a fact table, F-A-C-T, and then you've got a dimension table, which you'll see I've done a prefix of dim and a prefix of data instead of fact, just because people don't always know what fact is, and not everyone does the training. So just good to know this is the this is where all the data is held. So all the rows, all the transactions, this is additional information linked to one of the fields in this data set. So we know that this is the ledger. So there's the system ID. And then if I look on the left hand side here, I should be able to go, there's my system ID. So now I will drag the relationship between the two, and it'll create a relationship. I can double click on that and it'll show me, hey, this ID and that ID looks the same, so we're in good space. Now I'm going to close this. It's going to create a connection. So that becomes quite important for a few reasons. So now I can go to a new tab. I want to enable content, so that's fine. I'll make it trusted, that's great. And now I'm going to go insert, and I'm going to pivot table. And instead of doing from table range, I'm going to actually choose from the data model. Okay, so I choose data model. And where do you want to do it? That's fine. And now the data model on the right hand side here, you'll see that these like yellow greeny kind of little icons in the bottom right hand side of the table, and those are the ones we want. So if you click on active, it'll only show what's there. If you click on all, sometimes if you're returning other tables to Excel, then you'll see them as an option, but they won't have that little database icon. So what we're going to do now is we want to bring in, let's say, report. We want to bring in report level 1. We want to bring in report level 2. We want to bring in report level, well, let's just leave it there, and then name and code. So that's how we want to bring it in. And I'm going to bring in the measure in a different way just now, but for now I'm just going to click amount. So where is that? There's amount, just bringing it in. And so there's the amount, and then I can also straight away go and bring in the detail if I want. So I'm just going to not let that resize every time. Okay, and then I'm going to just make that a bit narrower so we can still see what we're doing. Okay, so you'll see here I've got the other underlying information, and so so now what I can do is I can just make this a bit neater. I can minimize. Yeah, minimize, collapse. Okay, cool. So there we have it. Now what I generally do is I create a few more lines there, and I'm going to go here and I want to say I want to filter on reports. So I just go down to my ledger, it's information about my ledger account, and I right click on report and I say add a slicer. I move this to the side and say actually I want this to be an income statement report, so it takes out all the balance sheet items. Okay, the next thing I want to do is I want to now do this by month, and so I can, or let's say I want to do it by quarter. So now I've got to, if I drag in the date, it's going to do some data aggregation for me, but it's still going to have some limitation, which you'll see a little bit later. So I'm going to just go here and I'm going to ungroup and I'm going to take them out again. So what I'm going to do now is add the date. So again, go back to my starter spreadsheet that I gave you. You're going to go up to this calendar. Some people would call this a date table. I call it a calendar table. I'd copy that. I would go back into my my model, go back to my, and if you don't have this on the left, you just go data, queries and connections, and to bring it back, and then I'm going to paste this here. So again, you'll see that I've got the calendar coming in, all the dependencies. I've said the fiscal period is 1 from calendars 2018 to 2022. If you want it to be like a fiscal month from say March to February, you would just go in there and you would change that to a 3. So that's how that works. So now what I can do is I can again on this calendar, I would just go, so where's my calendar now? There, I would just go load to, I'm going to make it a connection only, and I do want it to be a data model. So I'll do that and get that finished. And once it has finished, I'll then I can delete that, don't need that. So now I need to go and establish a relationship between that that calendar table and my model. So I go back to my Power Pivot, I go back to manage, I go back to the diagram view, and you'll see now I've got calendar. Okay, so now I'm going to do calendar to make that a little bit smaller. And you can see I've got dates and dates. So now I'm going to drag the dates, join the dates. Okay, and I can also go back to the data view and I can change the formatting. So if I click on calendar and this date is like got the hours and the minutes, I can click on it and I can change the format here to just year, month, day. I can do that the same on the underlying data. Okay, and year, month, day. Now a concept you'll get to later, but once you've established the date relationship to the calendar, you don't want your people to by accident select date out of here. You want to keep full functionality, so I just right click on the date in the finance table and I would say hide from client tools. And I would also, because I've linked the ledger, I would link all the ledger items. Might have to do, yeah, there we go, and right click, hide from client tools. So you, as you build in better structure, so if I go to the right here as well, hide from client tools. So anything that I can derive from the dimensions that I've created, I would then hide. So then I would close and load. And now what I can do is I can go back to calendar, or should I say back to the pivot table, and you'll see now the calendars there. Now I can do here, I can do something called year and month. I can drag that in, so it's just going to give me the year and the month. I can drag that out, I can drag in the year. So if I just go into year and then quarter, and then I can do months, I can do it like that. So 2021 quarter to May and June, so I can do it like that. I could also bring in month name, so I can see it's 2021 quarter to June and May and June. Now obviously this is alphabetical, so it doesn't work that well in this kind of reporting. You can change the sort order, but that's for another video. So I'm going to just go back down to I'll put the month in just as an example. So now if I wanted to do fiscal period, so if I drag that out and now go into fiscal year, so let's just do that, fiscal year, and then I bring in year month as an example. So now you can see I've got fiscal year is 2021, and it starts, obviously there's no data going back to January. So what I'm going to do a June year end, and so I'm going to go back to my queries and connections, and I'm going to click on start of fiscal year, and it's going to pop up Power Query, and I'm going to change that 1 to a 7. Okay, I'm going to close. It's going to rerun. Okay, and I'll go data refresh all. This will take a little bit of time because you are then fetching data from the different SQL tables and bringing it back into Excel and then into the data model. Okay, so you'll see I refreshed. In that case, I refreshed twice, once to upload the data and once to refresh the data. You don't always have to do it twice, but you'll see now I've got fiscal year 2021 for May and June, and fiscal year 2022 starting in July. So if I did that, I can now start to get fiscal year comparison, and so you're getting an idea as we go along. Okay, so now once I've done that, I want to start bringing in some time sensitivity. So there's a little bit more to it. And so again, you can just borrow from the quick model that I've created. And we're going to bring in this dim report month, and we're going to go copy, and we're going to go back into our current workbook, and we're going to go paste. Okay, and then you'll see what it's done here, as it said dim report month, and it's pulled. So I'm going to just go like that and just say load it to the model, but only create a connection. You will see that it's said year 2, year 2, year 2, and so that's what I was alluding to. So now we've got duplications, and so we'll just quickly edit that up, and I'll just take you through that quickly. If you've copied it all together in the first go, you wouldn't have to do this. So I will just double click on here, opens the Power Query editor, and if I go right back to the top, you'll see that it's going from year to year. Oh, this is from year calendar year 2. So these applied steps on the right, again separate training for how to use this, but just you can follow me through. So it's got today's date, it's got the from year, which is calendar 2. We're going to just change to calendar year, and then we'll see, choose the other one. Then the 2 year, we're going to take out the calendar year, the number 2, and choose just the calendar year. Okay, then the start of fiscal year, it's going to choose month 2. So again, we're going to take that out, as well as the space. So we should be good. Now we should be able to go and highlight these 3. And if they're used anywhere else, they will fail. So I'll delete. Okay, it says it is used by dim report month. So I'll just take one each time. So I will just delete that one. Just hit my delete key there, and 2, delete, and start of fiscal month, delete. Okay, so that is still in dim report month. So I need to go back to start of fiscal year, and it says your start of fiscal month. So that should be fine, unless I'm using that somewhere else. So, so if I just go here and I say start of fiscal month into that, then I should be able to delete. Okay, and no, it's still somewhere further down, so we're going to have to go through. And at this stage, I'm going to just hop into the advanced editor, which might be a little intimidating, but let's have a look, see. So I can see it over there. is pulling from month 2. So I'm just going to go there and delete that out. I should now be able to go and delete this. Again, not something you'd have to incur if you did it all in the first place. At the same time, this is a good time to do some housekeeping. So I would create a group called model. I would create a group for data, and in this I would also go here fact. So if you want to start using that language, I would go new group for dimensions. Okay, and then I'd say data actual goes into data. I would say dim ledger goes into dimensions, calendar goes into dimensions, and then I would go here and I'd say new group. I'd say supporting, and then I'll do one more called staging. Staging is just anything that I'm pulling together that I'm not going to use often. So all of these I'm going to put into staging, or actually doesn't really matter. Actually, I'll put these into supporting, and then staging. Actually, don't need to use staging it. We'll get to that when we do budget and other stuff, bringing it in together. Okay, so now that I've got that done, I'm going to close and load. You'll see it'll straight away feel a little bit neater on the right hand side, and the idea is that you should be able to, as an average user, only look at it like that. Okay, so what have we done? We've brought in report months, and now what I need to do is I need to do a slicer. So if I go insert, actually I'll do it this way. On the 3 buttons, I go to report month, I would choose end of month, and I'd say add a slicer. So the idea is that, just make this 2 columns, so slicer 2 columns. The idea is if I go and I choose 2021 May, I want this to change. Okay, there's no relationship, and that's a good thing. So you're going to be tempted to link this to the calendar table or to the data table, and you can with limited success of different things. But if you're building more of a financial report where you want to choose year to date, last year, year to date, switch between actual and budget and forecast, etc., then what I'm about to do is the better way to do it. So again, just for the sake of time of this video, I'm going to just show you, we've really packed a lot of useful information into this original report. So if you go into Power Pivot, measures, and you go manage measures, you'll see that we've created a whole bunch. Okay, and I'll just go across so you can pause this video and see it. Okay, so you'll see we've got actual amount, we've got actual amount last month, we've got actual amount LY, which is last year, and the actual amount and actual amount last year, you'll see it's only pulling off the calendar date, whereas the last month you'll see is pulling off dim report month. So you should see that in the query. And so we are basically going, it's easy enough to go here and I'll just edit actual amount. I'm going to copy this formula and I'll come back to measures, a measures table. In fact, let's copy that across now. So I'm just going to paste that into Notepad, just that I've got it. So I generally just do that and paste it in. I could also take the name if I want and just do that. I could then, I may as well do 1 or 2 more while I'm here. Actual amount last year, copy that in. And this great thing called Visual Studio Code, which is also very nice for managing this, but I'll keep it to a known area. So now I've done actual amount, actual last year into my memory. I'm going to choose actual amount month. Okay, and you'll see there's a lot more code there. So let's just go back into that and choose the heading. And then I'll choose actual month last year, and I'll leave it like that, and then last month. Okay, I'll just bring those in, and then year to date, etc. You can then, once you've learned this part of the video, you'll be able to just bring in the logic by watching that video. Okay, so I've got those all in into a notepad, and we're going to use that in a moment. I'm going to copy across this measures and amounts. It's just, there's nothing to it. If I load it, I mean, I can change that to nothing. So you'll see there's nothing to it. It's just got one row of data, but I use it as a placeholder. So I copy that. I go into here. I'm going to click on data and I'm going to paste it there. And it's just the underlying measures table, which I don't link to anything. So I load it. I load it to the data model, but I don't have to go link it. And now when we create a Power Pivot measure, and you can go new measure and it pops up like that, or you can go measures manager. I generally go there because it's just then gives me everything in the background. I'll go new measure, and then here I can store all my measures and amounts together, which just makes it easier. So now I'm going to just do a little bit of copy paste. So I had actual amount, and obviously in other videos be able to unpack the other great people who've done some really cool videos, some great Udemy courses, etc. So I'm going to check that formula, and it says, okay, data finance is not available, okay, because we're only using data finance actual. So we can go and we can either rename ours to data finance actual like this, and we can check formula, and I've got to do that again here as well. So I'll come back to it now. Go actual. So, and check formula, and now there are no errors. So I'm basically go and sum x. It's a way of summing, which again, lots of detail could go into, but I'm looking at data finance actual. I'm looking for amount. I'm timesing it by -1, so revenue is not a negative, and I only filter where it's equal to actual. So I can go ahead and build that out, but just seeing as most of the measures are data finance, I'm going to actually go ahead and build a placeholder for that. So I'm going to go cancel here, go back out. I'm going to go back into edit query. I'm going to go into create a new query from blank. I'm going to go equals table. Sorry, this case sensitive. And that's the syntax. So round brackets, curly brackets, and I'm going to go data finance actual. And then down the line, when I do budget, I can then just bring in the budget next to it, and that's the beauty of putting it in one place. So data finance table combined with a capital C, sorry, and there you've got your data, and this will just be data finance. And then what we can do, we can actually rename this to staging data finance actual. Okay, it's going to remove the link. We might have some Power Query or Power Pivot stuff to edit, and I'll put that now under staging. So now we have data finance, and we have here below. So now I'm going to go close and load to, and because I've just added that one, I'm going to say only create a connection, add it to the model. And now I'm going to go here, and I'm going to go load to, and the data finance actual can be unloaded from the model. Okay, we might have a little bit of a glitch in the numbers. Yep, they'll disappear. And now I can go back to my model, and now it's just repeat what I've done. So now I've got a dim ledger account, I've got a calendar, I've got report amount, which I'm not going to join, measures I'm not going to join. Here's the data finance, which I am going to join, so I'll pull that down, maybe put the calendar up again, link the date to the date, link system ID to system ID, and close, and that'll load. And then again, just to show you that quickly, I can go back to the pivot table, go back to my fields list, and I can bring in data finance, and I can pull the amount, and I'd be back to where I was earlier. You'll see it's kept the fiscal period. So the nice thing is you're building very, very nicely. So now we're going to create a measure. So I'm going to go Power Pivot, measures, manage measures, create a new measure. I'm going to copy this actual amount that I've given you. I'm going to make sure it's not in the dimension table, but in the measures and amounts table. I'm going to then choose the first formula. I'm going to make sure I don't put two equals in. I'm going to check it, there are no errors. I'm going to change it to a number, do thousand separators and whole. I really love this because you don't have to keep every time you're doing a pivot table changing the formatting. I hit OK, and I hit close, and now I can go to the bottom here, and you'll see here's measures amounts, and I can pull in actual amount. And so that's going to now show me actual amount. Okay, if I did well, pull that out, and now we're going to pull in so let's just pull out the months. I've still got the fiscal year. Okay, and in fact, just to make it yeah, that's cool. I'll do fiscal year like that. And then if I did another measure, so I go back to measures, manage measures, and I go into actual amount last year, new measure, and I might not have sufficient data. Let's just see. So you'll see the underlying query here says calculate the actual amount. So this obviously is not ideally formatted, so you can make it a little bit prettier to see, but effectively we say we want the same period last year, calendar date, do a number, 1,000 separators, and that's not going to be fiscal year, that's going to be same calendar year. And so if I bring that in last year, you'll see that I've got actual amount 12.7, actual amount last year is 0. So I'm just going to do a quick little wrap texture, and I'll just drag this out. So you'll see that the last years are empty, but that would dynamically work out. There we can see in 2023 there's the last year coming through, so it's actually projected into the future and is showing 2022's actual as 2023's prior year. So that's how you build it, and then you can drive off slices, but you can't yet choose a single month and let it dynamically work. So let me add that. So I'm going to swap out fiscal year, I'm going to bring in calendar, and I'm going to just choose actually I'll leave it out like that altogether, and you'll see now what I'm going to do. So we're going to now take out these measures, and we're going to create based on the month. So I'm going to call up my Power Pivot, measures, manage measures, new measure, again paste in the name, and then here it's quite an intricate formula, but I'll just talk you through. So we're looking at that one there, and we're basically saying first thing I'll do is I want to set the model date. So I choose the maximum of the report month, so whatever I select. The to date will be the maximum, or be the model date. The from date will be the same model date because we're looking at the month, and then I'm going to calculate the actual amount and use the from date to date. So you can pause the video, read through it a bit slower, but you'll see effectively if I go okay, didn't put the equal sign in, so let's do that. Okay, and check formula. Okay, so it wants, okay, so just make sure you're not pasting in the heading again if you did what I did there, and you'll see that we are starting with the model date. It works. We go number, no decimal places, so you can even change it to a whole number if you want, and we saying must start with equal sign, so equals, let's try that. Okay, so that's done, and we're now going to hit OK. We're going to bring that in, so that's the month, and so on the right hand side here I'm going to just bring this into the screen now, and we can see that if I deselect month, there's no data. But if I commit to a month, say July, it'll now bring July. If I commit to August, it'll bring me August. If I go June, you get the drift. So I'm going to do July. Now what I'm going to do is bring in prior months. So I go pivot table, Power Pivot, measures, manage measures, new measure, and I'm going to bring in from my text file last month. And the formula, check results, number, the whole number. Okay, go pivot table, analyze, bring up the fields, go to the bottom, bring in last month, and we now have, so you'll see here if I just go August, you'll see the 8199. In fact, let me just make that a little bit easier to see. So if I go August, you'll see the 8199 will move to 8191 to last month. There's the 1644. If I go to September, then the 1644 moves across. So it's quite dynamic, and that unfortunately you can't do in the the MacBook or the Mac version of Excel, but hopefully that'll come in time. Okay, so now I'm going to do one last little one, and I don't think I've got that in the other example, so I'll just do it quickly. And just for difference, I'll just go new measure, and I'll just go here actual amount this month versus last month, and then it is literally just going actual amount month minus actual amount last month. And I'll check the formula, change the font, not the font, the formatting, bring it in. Okay, it's in, and just wrap text that so we can see it. And so we'll see there, if I go to July, that's the 8 minus the 12, so it's minus 45. If I go to June, it's the 12 minus the 0 to 12. If I go to August, it's the 16 minus the 8 minus 165. So you'll see it's quite dynamic, it's quick, no sum ifs, no calculations done. And the nice thing is, you don't have to go and check every cell. So that is a whirlwind run through on how to create a Power Pivot data model report using the advanced Excel functionality and the Larasoft Xero2SQL underlying database. Hope you found that helpful, and welcome to check out our other videos on how to go deeper.